Men who discovered their child isn't actually theirs. How did you react? I knew that my father wasn't actually my biological father before he did. My mom thought I should know first, and she had planned to tell him shortly after me, but due to a work trip he went on, I knew for about a week before he did. Mom told me that she had a one-night stand with a dude while she was dating my dad. He thought the baby was his, so she went with it. The problem was she didn't tell me he didn't know, so I asked him how he was holding up on a phone call. It was pretty hard to explain it to him myself. I couldn't just give him a cliffhanger like that for such a huge announcement like that. Later that week, my neighbor accidentally set himself on fire. Mom and Dad mutually decided to divorce since she basically cheated on him. It's not really different between him and I. I still love him like my real dad. This happened to my best friend, yet he loves his son so much, I can't even express it in words. It's as if the news actually united them more in an everlasting bond of love than if he had been the boy's biological father. They need one another in the best sense, and all our friends witness this truth and depth of commitment. This wasn't me, but I was there when the truth came out at his not-really granddaughter's wedding. He got a vasectomy after they had 3 kids, and shortly after his wife became pregnant. He knew it wasn't his, but he made a decision to raise the son as his own. He ended up passing away. No one found out until the bride found out she has a rare hereditary disease that, after asking many questions, came from her biological grandfather. Someone got really drunk at the rehearsal dinner and decided it was a good idea to tell her father, the illegitimate son, the truth. It wasn't. TLDR. He raised it as his own with the intention of everyone believing it was his own. This reminds me of a story that happened to someone I know. His girlfriend that he was breaking up with called him and said, "I'm pregnant." To which he replied, "That's great." He pretended to be so happy about it that she told him, "I'm not pregnant. Fuck you," or something along that line. I told this story to a few friends, and when another friend had a similar issue, he did the same thing, and his girlfriend he was breaking up with had the same response. Was told he was mine. Raised him for 8 years before getting my own paternity test done to find out the truth. I changed his diapers, taught him how to ride his bike, basic dad stuff before I knew the truth. You can't unlove a kid. I'm his dad, and he's my son. I wouldn't have it any other way. I despise his manipulative, lying mother. I think she holds him back. My neighbor is an amazing single dad to 2 children that he confessed that he's not sure if they are his or not. He says it doesn't matter anymore. They are his children and he loves them, blood or not. His ex-fiancée pretty much had her way with the whole neighborhood. She had a kid with my neighbor, then had another kid with a guy down the street, and my neighbor forgave her, and then had another kid with my neighbor. One day, she leaves for another neighbor's brother, leaving all 3 kids to be raised by their fathers. She now plays house with her husband's 6 kids that were abandoned on him by their mom. She tried to get custody over a year ago and was denied, but given 2 weekends a month. Now, this has never happened to me, so I can't say for sure. I have 2 children 5 and 3 years old, and I love them more than myself. If I were to find out that one of them were not my own, I wouldn't blame the child and not love she the same. I would blame my GF for this. The child is in no way to blame. Why would I refuse this child my love? Eve loved this child all its life. Why would this need to change? Not my story, but I feel it should be told in light of all the horrible stories in this thread. I know a guy who found out his daughter was not his biologically after raising her for a few years. He used that as proof in court that the mother was not trustworthy and unfit to be a mother in order to get full custody. He loves her and she is his daughter, not by blood, but he is definitely the father and loves her very much. I'm probably a little late for this thread, but oh well. My daughter isn't mine. My now ex-wife knows. I know our daughter is little and doesn't know. The real father doesn't want anything to do with her. In my mind, she'll always be my daughter. I'll raise her and care for her. Not because I have to, but because she deserves the love of a father as much as anyone else. My ex-wife, I don't wish ill upon. When I let her go, I let all that anger go too. I'm just happy to have this little girl in my life. This happened to a really good friend of mine. He was a teenager at the time, getting ready to go to university for his first time. Broke up with his ex, who came to him a few weeks later and told him she was pregnant and that it was his. He immediately accepted it and dropped out of university before he even started it. Got a full-time job, took care of her all through her pregnancy, and got everything they needed for when the baby arrived. He was even in the delivery room when the baby was born. Upon the birth, his ex wavered and asked for a paternity test. All this time, the kid wasn't even his. He stuck around for about a month before he realized that this wasn't his burden to bear and re-enrolled in university. He just picked up where he left off and basically got on with life. I had almost the exact same experience as you did. Except I made her let me take her to the doc appointment for a blood test to confirm, after she had taken like 10 positive home tests. No pregnancy. I really pride myself on the fact that at 17 I stayed completely calm, as you did, and the situation smoothed itself out. Props to you. Given how so many of the other stories here ended in acrimony, it's refreshing to see one where the adults involved did what was necessary for the sake of the child. You are very lucky to have had two fathers that put your needs ahead of theirs. I come from a non-conventional family, and now have one of my own. It's incredibly hard at times, but worth all the heartache in the world to see my little girl happy. Thank you for sharing. When my son's father and I were on a break, he slept with someone else and never said anything until she showed up 8 months later and claimed it was his. It turns out it wasn't, but I did some digging and she was in fact going around claiming other guys were the father. Last I heard, she finally found out. I'm long over the fact that happened, but if anything, I feel really bad for her. They did. I'm now married to someone else with 2 great kids and have paid off my apartment. Except the part where you wanted to spend the rest of your life with her. That really hit me, because I had in fact already proposed, and we were supposed to be getting married in less than a year. I guess she decided she wanted one last fling. I missed her for a long time, but these days I'm glad I never married her. TBH, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually helped him overall. People tend to grow up when they find out they'll be parents, at least many do. So this may have caused him to reevaluate his priorities and kick himself into gear. And odds are he was saving money, so he might have ended up with a nice chunk of change after 9 months that was no longer for baby expenses. Had to research my family tree for a biology project, things like eye color, curls or straight hair, ears attached or loose, etc. Failed the assignment because teacher thought I made up my data because both my cousins didn't check out. Did my next assignment better, grades even out, and never thought of it again. 2 years later, I tell the story at my aunt's birthday party. She starts crying, tells us they are not my uncle's kids. Uncle gets crazy mad. Nope, the hell out of there. My class actually did the test. I got AB. And my sister told me my mom was A. So I texted my dad asking what blood type he have. He just texted back, "Don't you believe I'm your father?" I never got hit blood type, but I look like a mix of him and my mom, so I'm not doubting he is my dad. However, one of my friends didn't try this experiment because her teacher once got a result with another class that didn't make any sense, and it did turn out that the kid was adopted or something like that. Had a similar experience. I broke up with a nice girl. She said she was pregnant, so I took the wonderful woman back. She tells me she wasn't pregnant, just wanted to see how I would react, and she's just glad we got back together. So I kicked nice girl to the curb. A day later, guess what? Nice girl says she really was pregnant and wanted to see if I was just getting back with her for the kid. So I say, I just want to be with you. Let's do lunch at the Taco Bell. I pick her up, and instead of going to lunch, I take her to the free pregnancy clinic. She doesn't want to go in, of course. We go, and you guessed it, she wasn't pregnant. But I kept my word and got her a cheesy gordita crunch and dropped her ass off at her mama house. TLDR, flip-flopping about babies at least gets you Taco Bell. Oh, well, I hate doing her hair. Her hair is really thick as far as volume and very curly. When she's with me, it's comb it back and in a ponytail and with a headband. She's never worn braids or anything like that. Always been regularly brushed back and set down. She tells me she hates her hair though. She wants to permanently straighten it, but she's too young just yet. I'll be glad when she's old enough to do it too, because I don't know what the hell to do with it. Man, I'm sure you're doing the best you can. It isn't easy. I implore you to take her to a local hairdresser that specializes in natural black hair and get some tips. It'll be easier to take care of once you know what to do. Mixed kids with no relationship to one side of their family already can have identity issues. Try to teach her to love her hair and embrace the way she looks. Showing her that there are others with hair like hers who love it will help. You should really head over to r/black ladies and ask them. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. He had anger issues, and she was a bit of a drama queen who knew how to push his buttons. I actually spent a good part of my childhood wishing they would divorce, but by the time they actually did, it seemed out of the blue and very forced by my mom. My dad has gotten help and come a long way. He's living with a wonderful woman now and has 3 big dogs and is really happy. I think I can relate to him a lot more now that I'm older, but I definitely related to Ben more as a kid. Thanks, buddy. I think it's just myself being selfish. I both know that the girl is a bit crazy, and she would have been on my doorstep the second she was single, and also that I probably couldn't be able to stay away from the child for the rest of my life. I think children in general would like to know that their parents stood up for them from the start, not just when they felt it was needed. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. A suggestion on meeting the new family. I would recommend going out to lunch the day before, or after depending on how your schedule works, as meeting them only at the wedding won't give you much time to talk. You don't want to make them feel overlooked. Weddings are crazy with dividing your attention among different people. My mom is a widow and looks way younger than she actually is. The number of people who assume she got knocked up as a teenager and treat her like crap because of it is infuriating. When they find out she's a widow and act all apologetic, my mom's response is always, "So you treat teen mothers this way? What's wrong with you?" We did ours with blood type, but you needed special permission to do so. Once, before I was in the school, a kid had type O blood and the parents had AB or something that wouldn't work genetically. I don't know the exact blood types. Turns out the kid was adopted and had no idea. The parents were furious. Now they still do blood typing, but not with the parents/relatives. Just for fun. Man, I'm sure you're doing the best you can. It isn't easy. I implore you to take her to a local hairdresser that specializes in natural black hair and get some tips. It'll be easier to take care of once you know what to do. Mixed kids with no relationship to one side of their family already can have identity issues. Try to teach her to love her hair and embrace the way she looks. Showing her that there are others with hair like hers who love it will help. You should really head over to r/black ladies and ask them. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. I have a buddy who was in the Air Force, we'll call him John, and hooked up with a girl whom he didn't yet know was a well-traveled young lady. She ends up pregnant, claiming it's his. There's some arguing over it, but he eventually agrees to take responsibility. Anyway, a few weeks later, she starts dating another dude and suddenly started claiming this new guy was the dad. Well, John has a WTF reaction and tries to contact her, but she essentially cuts him off altogether, blocks his number, etc. Well, Air Force has some programs to provide legal counsel, so he goes to get advice. They basically told him that this case wouldn't be covered by their benefits, so he'd have to pay legal expenses out of pocket. 2, if he does succeed in getting a court-ordered paternity test, the best-case scenario that could result is that he'd get the kid recognized as his and have to pay child support. TLDR, it's expensive, and you'll probably just end up owing a bunch of money to pay for the expenses of a child you can't even see. This dude knows a dude who this happened to. Let's call him Pops. So Pops had 3 kids and decides to get a vasectomy. Pop's wife ends up prego, and you see Pops knows this kid isn't his, but being the rad dad Pops is he raises the kid. Let's call this kid Brad. So Pops the rad dad raises Brad, and like nobody realized Brad isn't Pop's kid. Fast forward a long-ass time. Brad is now a rad dad himself, and has a daughter. Let's call her Betsy. So Betsy is getting married to this dude who is a total jabroni, but that's besides the point. Betsy has a really rare hereditary disease, and after a lot questioning, she finds out it's from her bio-G-pa. So someone decides it's a good idea to tell Brad that Pops isn't really his father. I wish there was a good sarcastic comeback for all of these. Sometimes people mean well and are awkward at staring conversations. It's the nasty looks that I hated. One time I was out with my mentor, I was in high school, and he was in his 30s with a 2-year-old and his daughter, and dear Lord did we get nasty looks. I know for certain that mine is O+. I'm almost certainly sure that my father's is AB. I remember a conversation we had about him having a very rare blood type. Now a rather large part of me is hoping I'm wrong. Edit, panic over. Dad confirmed he has type A, but it's rare in that when he donates it's RH+, but if he receives blood it has to be RH-. Phew. TLDR he is the father, but apparently some kind of mutant. TBH I wouldn't take it as I think you're sleeping around. But look at it like this. I would know 100% that he's the father. But no matter how much he trusts me, in this day and age, he could never have the same amount of assurance without a blood test. I look at it like giving him the same privilege of that absolute 100%, and he would never have those doubts later on. In that light, that sounds fair. But I know if I got asked if it was his, I'd be pretty hurt regardless. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.